Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you the review I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I actually got this Transformers figure way back in July for my birthday, so that's how behind I am in reviewing it. So here is one of the more unique Transformers figures I got this year because it is not part of the Kingdom line, it is not part of the Netflix line, it is not part of the Transformers Studio Series line. It is one of only 2 action figures I've gotten so far that was released in the Transformers Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. This figure is known as Origin Bumblebee. So this figure is a brand new mold. It is very special because it's one. When it was announced, this figure was first announced, and product photos of it were shown. Transformers fans everywhere made the compliment that this is a rarity in that this is one of the few Bumblebee action figures that Transformers fans and collectors have actually been wanting to collect over the years. Bumblebee has been, in the minds of some Transformers fans, overly used. Bumblebee has become the Transformers character who's gotten too many action figures, since Bumblebee has been given more action figures than Optimus Prime and Megatron. And I believe Bumblebee now holds the title of being the Transformers character who's received the most action figures than any other character, even more than Optimus Prime, Megatron, and Starscream. So, Bumblebee, I will explain in a moment why he is special, but here is the Bumblebee action figure itself. And Origin Bumblebee was, when he was released around my birthday back in July, it's still 2021 when I'm recording this video. Still a few days left in the year 2021. But when he was released in July, Origin Bumblebee became one of the first Transformers action figures to show Hasbro and Takara Tomi's public announcement the previous year that they're going to try and use as little plastic as possible in the actual packaging that their Transformers action figures come in. And you can see it here on Origins Bumblebee by this. That's right, there is no plastic window on the front of Origins Bumblebee. He is right there for anyone to touch I'm in contact with right now. At the time when I found him back in July, the COVID pandemic was under control, so I wasn't too afraid about getting a Transformers action figure that wasn't behind a plastic window or inside an enclosed box. But yes, just be warned that because there is nothing protecting Origins Bumblebee from the outside elements, you could potentially find a copy of this figure that's covered in dust, has dirt specks on it, or has paint scratches on it due to coming into contact with something, since there's nothing actually protecting Bumblebee from the outside elements. So here for the artwork on the side of his box, Hasbro and Takara Tomy actually have different images of Bumblebee from previous years in the Transformers franchise. The one on top, I believe, is Bumblebee from the Earth Wars mobile video game. You got a screenshot of Bumblebee's G1 cartoon animation model. I believe that might be from either episode 2 or episode 3 of the G1 cartoon series. You got an artwork here of Bumblebee. I believe that's yeah, it's just an enlarged version of the Earth Wars mobile game located on the top of the box. It's close up of his face. And of course, there is one of the first images of Bumblebee ever created. It's the image of him from the G1 Marvel comic books, which were published before the G1 cartoon series aired on television. So yeah, the Buzzworthy Bumblebee has become one of the larger lines of Transformers action figures. But incredibly, Hasbro and Takara Tomy, they're announcing more and more Transformers action figures are being released in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line that aren't necessarily connected to Bumblebee, and the most recent Transformers figures that have been announced, it's making Transformers fans and collectors realize that the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line is becoming a line similar to the Transformers Generation Selects line. As you can see, I have some Generation Selects boxes right here. There's another one over there. So yeah, the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line is slowly becoming to be just like the Transformers Generation Selects line, where it's made up mostly of Transformers figures that are repaints that collectors wouldn't necessarily be over anxious to collect. So yeah, the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line is becoming the dumping ground of repaint Transformers figures that are afterthoughts and not the repaints that Transformers fans and collectors are eager to scramble and fight against each other to go and collect. They're the ones that, if you were up to collecting something either as a spur of the moment or you collecting it just to collect it, that's what the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line unfortunately is slowly turning into. Some Transformers fans and collectors wondered if the Buzzworthy line was going to go in the direction of Origin Bumblebee and actually surprise Transformers fans and collectors by releasing Bumblebee action figures that everyone would actually want to collect. But it appears Origin Bumblebee is one of the destined to be one of the crown jewels of the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line, while most of the figures in the line are ones that collectors won't be too anxious to collect. So that close-up of Bumblebee's face, here's the same image right here. I believe that is Bumblebee's animation model from the Transformers Earth Wars mobile game. And that's being used right there. It does have some design cues of Bumblebee based on his appearance in the IDW's comic books, G1 Bumblebee, and of course from the live-action movie. So that's one of the things. Again, Bumblebee has been such an overused Transformers character. It's now come to the point that versions of Bumblebee from different moments in the Transformers franchise, Hasbro and Takara Komi can just take the best parts, the best features of previous versions of Bumblebee, mash them together, and try and make a fresh face for Bumblebee that Transformers fans and collectors will be willing to embrace. So here on the top of the box, following the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line's packaging of being mostly yellow with black highlights, there's the Autobot logo. It'll go up there on top. And here on the back of the box, you've got the product photos. You've got Origin Bumblebee in his robot mode. And this is this is the main reason why I said that Origin Bumblebee was a surprise Transformers fans and collectors by being a Bumblebee figure that everyone actually wanted to collect. It's because of his vehicle mode. Origin Bumblebee's vehicle mode is the vehicle mode he had in the very first episode of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon series, More Than Meets the Eye Part 1, the vehicle mode that he had on planet Cybertron before coming to Earth, which is a hover car that's sort of shaped like a flying saucer. So yes, ever since Bumblebee appeared for the first time in the Generation 1 cartoon series, Transformers fans and collectors, even those who were alive back in 1984 and watched Bumblebee transform for the first time into this hover car, have been wanting to have an action figure of it. And Hasbro and Takara Tomy, 37 years after the G1 cartoon aired its pilot episode on television for the first time, collectors now have a hovercar Cybertron alt mode action figure of Bumblebee in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line's Origin Bumblebee action figure. So yeah, that's pretty impressive looking. As for Bumblebee's robot mode, it does try to look like Bumblebee's robot mode animation model from the G1 cartoon series. But for Transformers fans and collectors who are OCD about accuracy to the animation models of Transformers characters, there are some parts of Bumblebee's vehicle mode that hang off the back of him and also on his shins. There's some panels left over from the vehicle mode. Oh, there in his product photos. But Bumblebee does make up for it by coming with additional accessory pieces pictured here on the back of the box that he did use in the G1 cartoon series. The laser gun he used to help Wheeljack blast their way through the group of Decepticons that have come to be known as the Decepticon Welcoming Committee. You got the jetpack that Bumblebee used on a couple of times, and and for Transformers collectors who are nostalgic for the G1 cartoon series, Bumblebee has the energy conductor rods that he and Wheeljack gathered in the opening scene of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon. So yes, if you have the War for Cybertron Trilogy Kingdom, or even the Earthrise release of Deluxe Class Wheeljack, you can use this action figure of Bumblebee to reenact that scene in at the very beginning of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon series. So yeah, that's pretty impressive looking. Pretty impressive that Hasbro and Takara Tomy included those accessory pieces with Bumblebee. One thing to note, I've seen this from all the video reviews that have already been done on Origins Bumblebee. Even though in the product photos his laser gun and his jetpack are shown being silver, On the final product, they're actually black, and I believe they are unpainted black plastic, just like Bumblebee's black robot mode parts. But yes, I've doted on Bumblebee longer than I wanted to, so let's get past my babbling and take a close look at Bumblebee out of the package in his robot mode. Now, before I actually finish taking Bumblebee out of his box, just in case you guys couldn't see it through the open window, with Hasbro and Takara trying to remove as much plastic as they possibly can in their Transformers figures, they've gone back to using paper tie-down strings to hold their Transformers action figures in place. So don't be too surprised if a majority of the Transformers action figures being released next year in 2022, if not all of them, will have these paper tie-downs. Paper tie-downs were introduced in the Transformers 2010 line, and then I believe it started either with the Titan's Return or the Power of the Primes line is when Hasbro replaced paper tie-downs with the plastic straps, which have been a pain to remove for me personally ever since they were introduced. I actually came to enjoy paper tie-downs when they were introduced in the 2010 line, and so I'm glad that Hasbro and Takara brought them back. So yes, my apologies for this interruption in the video. Alright, and so here is Origin Bumblebee out of his package in his robot mode, and for what he does is having the Cybertronian vehicle mode that Bumblebee had in the G1 cartoon series. It is a pretty decent looking robot mode that he possesses. So he does unfortunately have the fake window chest, as that quite a few Transformers action figures have been given. But considering the type of vehicle he transforms into, I can justify him having a fake window chest, since the actual one of his vehicle mode is differently shaped. For the G1 cartoon series, it was quite common for Sunbow Studios to make the animation models of the Transformers characters be disproportionate to the action figures, and I have no doubt that had an action figure like this been released in the Transformers Generation 1 line where Bumblebee did have a hover car for a vehicle mode, I'm highly doubtful that the robot mode would have looked almost exactly the same aim as the version of him that transforms into a Volkswagen Beetle. So yeah, moving along, he does have standard articulation. He does have a ball-jointed head, and it can't really look up and down due to how Bumblebee's head sits flush on top of his neck, but it does swivel left and right, 360 degrees. He's got universal jointed shoulders, so the arms can go forward and backwards 360 degrees. He does have a bicep swivel, and a hinged elbow. No wrist articulation, and the hands actually fold backwards due to transformation, so if you were to try and put any articulation in Bumblebee's hands, you would unfortunately make it look like he's broken his wrist, and it just makes me shudder seeing it like that. He does have a waist swivel, but right out of the box it is a little tight. He has universal jointed hips, so the legs can go out pretty far. They can go forward this much before the moving his arm out of the way. The legs can go forward this much before the Bumblebee's square-shaped hips cause it to hit his pelvis. They can go backwards this really far, but again, it's hindered not by the jetpack or the back cable on him, but again, it's hindered due to the slightly square-shaped hips and the way his pelvis is shaped. He does have swivel joints in the thighs, double hinged knees due to transformation, and he does have ankle rockers, so you can get him into a wide-legged pose. But yeah, all in all, Origin Bumblebee's robot mode, for all the kibble that it had as from his vehicle mode, it is pretty impressive looking, and I really do enjoy the head sculpt that's been given here on Bumblebee. It looks more like the Generation 1 Bumblebee action figure, and on the Generation 1 Bumblebee figure, his head was stuck to the front section of a flat square panel, so to have it done in 3 dimensions, that's really ingenious of the designers at Hasbro and Takara to come up with that. So as you can see, I already attached his backpack to him. Again, unlike the product photos on the back of the box showing that it was originally going to be silver, on the final product it is black, same with Bumblebee's laser gun. And now, unfortunately for the energy conductor rods, just like the scene when Bumblebee and Wheeljack are uh, collecting them in the G1 cartoon, you do get five of them, and five of them. But unfortunately, the end pieces on here, they're slightly larger than 5 millimeters. I think they're 6 millimeters wide. So unfortunately, Bumblebee cannot hold it. The only way these rods are going to be held by a Transformers action figure is if they have open hands, and their hands aren't clenched into a fist. But even if, but that's only for Transformers action figures who, even if their hands are opened up, if they are 5 millimeter, if the space between the thumb and the fingers is only 5 millimeters, these connector rods aren't going to fit into it. It will snap off on them. So that is a bit disappointing that they didn't make the rods thin enough that they could be held by closed-fisted Transformers action figures. The only Transformers figures I can think of who would be able to hold these types of rods would be ones that have fingers that open and shut, and have a thumb that isn't attached at all to the rest of the fingers on them. And, some Transformers action figures like that I can think of would be Kingdom Optimus Primal, Kingdom Beast Wars Megatron. But yeah, that is one disappointment. That is the main gripe to be had with the energy conducting rods, is that they're too large to be held by close-fisted Transformers action figures, and even Transformers figures who have an open hand but only have 5 millimeters of space between the thumb and the fingers, they're not going to be able to hold those rods either. So that unfortunately makes the conductor rods the one of the weakest accessory pieces that any Transformers character could come with, even though Bumblebee was shown holding on to them in the first episode of the G1 cartoon series. So for a quick size comparison, here is Origin Bumblebee next to what has become for many collectors the quintessential Earth mode Bumblebee figure to get, and one that many Transformers fans and collectors have compared to Origin Bumblebee. It is the Netflix War for Cybertron trilogy Bumblebee figure, and in the minds of many Transformers fans and collectors, after being revived by Teletran 1, Bumblebee went from being this figure to being this figure due to the different vehicle modes. And speaking of vehicle mode, we will get it Origin Bumblebee Transform, take a close look at his vehicle mode, wrap up the review, and see if all the hype about him having the Cybertron alt mode Bumblebee had in the G1 cartoon makes the figure worthwhile. Alright, and so here is Origin Bumblebee transformed into his vehicle mode of a Cybertronian hover car, and I gotta say, it was worth the long wait to finally get a Cybertron alternate mode vehicle mode version of Bumblebee. I'm really impressed with how great it looks. One thing to note about Origin Bumblebee, for those who are OCD about Bumblebee's appearance in the G1 cartoon series, Bumblebee did have the exact same four wheels that he would later retained when Teletran 1 upgraded his vehicle mode from a Cybertronian hover car to a Volkswagen Beetle. And the Origin B figure does not have it, but you can use your imagination to imagine that he has the wheels on him. But yeah, I do love the shape and the shade of yellow plastic used on this figure. And one nice thing to notice is that the shade of yellow paint that's used on Origin B, the parts of him that are yellow paint and the parts that are yellow plastic, it's been a rarity when Hasbro and Takara gets the paint to match up the plastic perfectly, but on Origin Bumblebee, they did a successful job of it. It's very hard to distinguish, even to your eyes, which parts are yellow paint and which ones are yellow plastic. So I really enjoy Hasbro and Takara success at paint matching the different shades of the yellow paint versus the yellow plastic here on Origin Bumblebee. And of course, our size comparison here once again is Netflix Bumblebee. So here is Bumblebee's vehicle mode on planet Cybertron and his vehicle mode here on planet Earth. And another reason why I've seen a lot of collectors comparing Origin Bumblebee with Netflix Bumblebee is just like Netflix Bumblebee. There unfortunately is no proper weapon storage for Origin Bumblebee's accessory pieces. So as far as being able to store his weapons, you have uh, your only options are to either put his laser gun or the jetpack right on top of Bumblebee and have it just sit there. So that is a bit of a disappointment that Hasbro and Dakar told me couldn't design any proper weapon storage for it. Or if you wanted to, you can attach the. If you want Bumblebee to be armored up, you can attach the jetpack to the top, and there's two more. There's 3 5mm peg holes here on Origin Bumblebee. So if you want to, one thing you could do is so, yeah, as far as weapon storage, that's pretty much it. You just use the 5mm peg holes on top of Bumblebee to store his weapons on it. It's similar to Netflix Bumblebee. The only way to store Netflix Bumblebee's weapons is to take the back piece off and have the weapons sitting there on the back of him. And there's no way of attaching any of the connector rods, as far as I can tell, looking at the underside of Origin's Bumblebee. There's no way of storing the rods as with him. So if you aren't too careful, these rods will potentially get lost since there's no place to actually attach them to Bumblebee. See, I can see why a lot of collectors have compared Origins Bumblebee with being the Origins Bumblebee and Netflix Bumblebee being the two versions of Generation 1 Bumblebee, and how this figure ends up becoming this figure, or rather, this Bumblebee's vehicle mode becomes this Bumblebee's vehicle mode, because there's no proper place to store his weapons and accessory pieces. So that's pretty much the only gripe to be had with Origin Bumblebee, is no proper weapon storage. But I can overlook that, and since I am just overjoyed at seeing how much this action figure looks like Bumblebee's animation model from the pilot episode of the G1 series where his vehicle mode is shown. Bumblebee was one of only 3 Autobots to have both a Cybertronian vehicle mode and an Earth vehicle mode in the G1 cartoon series. The other Autobots were Wheeljack and Jazz. So whether or not we're going to one day get Cybertron vehicle modes of Jazz and Wheeljack is uncertain at this point, but Hasbro and Dakar Tomy for now did manage to do Bumblebee great justice with the Origin Bumblebee figure. So do I recommend getting Origin Bumblebee if you have not yet gotten him? Absolutely. Again, he is unique because the vehicle mode is the selling point of this Bumblebee action figure. It's become the first and only action figure released by Hasbro and Dakar Tomy in which Bumblebee transforms into the Cybertronian vehicle mode he had in the first episode of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon series. It's very cartoon accurate to his animation model. And as a shout out to the pilot episode of G1 being the one time where this vehicle mode was shown, Bumblebee comes with the connector rods that he and Wheeljack had gathered while they were heading back to Iacon City. He comes with the jetpack he used in the series, and of course his laser gun. And so yes, I highly recommend getting Origins Bumblebee if you can find him. So thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFN Geek, and until next time, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, transform, and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.